This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and right here, this is a 2020 13-inch MacBook Pro. You're probably aware already of what's changed and what's going on here, but let's just talk about the most important thing. They have moved back to the Magic Keyboard, the one with 1 millimeter of travel that uses traditional scissor keys for better feel and better durability. So the butterfly keyboard, for those who've been holding on for years and running some older Mac laptop band-aided together until you can get back to a more normal keyboard, well, yay, that's it right here. The other change is Intel 10th generation Ice Lake CPUs for a little bit better power efficiency, a little bit better performance. The bad news is, and Apple always does this with a 13-inch MacBook Pro, well, your base model is always kind of lacking. So it's tempting at first. It's $1299, right? Well, that one still has the 8th gen CPU, which is no slouch, honestly. Mind you, there's no 9th gen for this 28-watt CPU they're using. They just skip numbers. So, and if you want the new 10th gen CPU, then that starts with the $1799 model for the pre-configured base models. So as ever, the $1299 price tag is really enticing. You think maybe you could afford that, but the one you really want is the $1799 model. But we'll talk about the $1299 model, which isn't bad, though we do have the $1799 model here, which has the Intel 10th gen CPU, so we can see how much has changed. We're going to look at it now. But let's talk a little bit about what hasn't changed, which is most everything else. You have the same Retina display, and it's 2560 by 1600 resolution with a 16 by 10 aspect ratio that I know a lot of you love, and it's got good color gamut. It's one of the selling points versus the MacBook Air. It's wider color gamut. It's a lovely display. Same as the last generation model. Also, we have the same casing. I know there were rumors about a 14-inch MacBook Pro replacing the 13-inch, just like the 16-inch had replaced the 15-inch, but obviously that's not the case. Rumors of mini LED displays, well, not yet. Maybe next year. Who knows what's going on, or if that was just pie in the sky dreaming. We don't know about that. You've got Wi-Fi 5 on board with Bluetooth 5 and a 720p FaceTime HD camera, same as last generation. So were it not for the whole butterfly keyboard canoodle that people were avoiding or thinking about upgrading to get away from, probably this wouldn't be the most exciting upgrade. For the base model with the Intel 8th gen CPU, that is a Core i5, the base clock speed is 1.4 gigahertz. The turbo boost goes up to 3.9 gigahertz. Now, our Intel 10th gen model starts with a higher base clock speed of 2.0 gigahertz, and it turbo boosts to slightly lower at 3.8 gigahertz, but close enough. It also has faster RAM on board. Something that has changed is the fact that you can go up to 32 gigs of RAM now in a 13-inch MacBook Pro if you go with the Intel 10th generation. If you go with the 8th gen, it maxes out at 16. As ever with Apple, well, that RAM is soldered on board. So is the SSD. Don't ever plan on repairing anything yourself here other than maybe replacing the battery. Speaking of SSDs, the base model, the $1299 model, has a 256 gig SSD, so that's kind of sort of okay and reasonable. You probably want a 512, which you can do in either the 8th or the 10th gen model if you wish. And you can go all the way up to 4 terabytes. Wow. That would cost you $1,200 to upgrade to that from the 512 gig SSD in the Intel 10th gen model, but if you need it, it's there. Happily, the 1 terabyte upgrade from a 512 is only $200 more, so it's not so painful. The weight is, as it ever was, 3.1 pounds, which is 1.4 kilograms. So not the lightest 13-inch Ultrabook / laptop on the market, but that's fine. And rather than having Apple compromise features even more to make things thinner and lighter, we'll just let them do what they're doing right now. 15.6 millimeters thick, so it's a pretty slim laptop. One other difference between, and this has happened before, the base and the better version of the 13-inch MacBook Pro. The base model has 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and the higher-end $1799 and up Intel 10th gen model has 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports. They both have a headphone jack, yay that, and yeah, that's it for ports. In our 10th gen model, performance is better. The single core speed is noticeably better than the previous generation, but it's not a great leap. Again, were it not for the butterfly keyboard, I don't think anybody would be upgrading from the last gen 8th gen processor model to the 10th gen for performance. It's better, it's a little faster Iris Plus graphics versus the older Iris Plus graphics, but it's not a huge leap forward on that. It does have 2 fans inside to control heat. So what I'm going to talk about, because this is really pretty much a known quantity laptop other than, well, the change to the keyboard, which is a good thing, and yes, I like the new Magic Keyboard much better. Let's talk about in comparisons to some other laptops you might be thinking of, starting with Macs first. Versus the MacBook Air, what's the selling point here? More horsepower. There, the performance difference is noticeable. You have a higher wattage CPU, you have noticeably better graphics. So if you're just doing Pages and Keynote or Word and Excel and streaming video, then a MacBook Air is perfectly fine. But for those of you who want to play with iMovie or are using Final Cut or are doing IDE development work, say for iOS apps or whatever, where more speed would be good, analyzing data sets, then definitely the 13-inch MacBook Pro is worth a look. It also has better speakers. The MacBook Air speakers are okay. The 13-inch MacBook Pro has really nice speakers. Not as good as the 16-inch, but really nice speakers. The display is also better. It's wider color gamut. It's a more expensive product. It should have a better display. And it is noticeable. Nice, saturated looking colors, more vivid. It's also still very color accurate. Apple claims 500 nits of brightness, so it is brighter than the MacBook Air 2. We didn't get quite that. You can see the metrics on screen, but still it's a very bright display. Obviously you get 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, so that's a lot of connectivity going on there versus the MacBook Air as well. In terms of heat, actually the 13-inch MacBook Pro does a little bit better than the Air. I know some people had problems with their Airs running hot, or there were YouTube videos about that, not from us. I didn't see that happening, but if you really do push it hard, obviously the 2-fan option is going to work out a lot better. The 13-inch MacBook Pro is designed to work harder. Speaking of heat, compared to the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is certainly a toastier machine, particularly if you hook up external monitors and start doing things like video editing or gaming and all that sort of thing, obviously this is the one that's going to have a cooler casing to the touch, though the core temperatures can get up there, but only if you're doing something like, say, we did our Cinebench R20 benchmark, which you can see Apple does not throttle at all. Those core temperatures will go up to 100 degrees centigrade, which is the allowable maximum. They quickly drop back down to like 45 degrees, so that the cooling is efficient and well handled. But it's interesting to see in Cinebench that, number one, the temperatures to the touch weren't that bad compared to a 16-inch MacBook Pro. And also, running through several concurrent, just keep running the test over and over again to see how much heat makes the performance drop. Not really. Really, you could see a 30-point drop going down or a 30-point boost the next test. So it's holding its performance levels pretty well, too. Obviously, versus the 16-inch MacBook Pro, that you're getting a smaller screen here, you're getting smaller speakers, so the audio isn't quite as Obviously, for portability, the 13-inch is going to win over the 16-inch, though the 16-inch MacBook Pro is extremely thin and extremely light, honestly, for a laptop in that class. But if you're going to do things like Blender renders, if you're really hardcore programming and you're doing very large programs, you know, not some teeny iOS app, but maybe something like a very complex one, for example, if you're going to be playing games, I don't mean casual games, but, you know, more like AAA titles, that sort of thing, the 16-inch MacBook Pro is still going to be the one that you want. Now, versus Windows Ultrabooks, this is what happens every year. You know, it's not the best deal in the house. You're buying this because you like the build quality, you like the look, you like Mac OS and everything it has to offer. Maybe you have an iPhone or an iPad and you like the synergy of all the devices, an Apple Watch that you can use to actually unlock your 13-inch MacBook Pro. The touch bar, I don't know if that's really a selling point for a lot of people, but yeah, it's still there for better or worse. So those are the selling points for the Mac, and typically they're pretty reliable and they last for years and the resale value is great. But obviously in Windows land you have so many things to choose from. Say, the previous review we did was the Samsung Galaxy Book Flex 13.3-inch, and that was a very popular video because it's a new product and it's also very good. It's $1349, so generally speaking a lot less expensive. You get Intel 10th Gen CPUs that benchmark about the same. You get a pen, an actually usable pen for art and note-taking. You get a convertible design. You get a beautiful design. So Windows is always going to have alternatives that are captivating, and they're getting better and better looking, so you don't feel like, well, the Mac is still the prettiest or the best made. So it's a tough thing, but if you like Mac OS, you like Mac OS. And obviously, yes, you can run Windows on the Mac, which makes it versatile too. You can either do it via virtual machines, and I would suggest getting a 16 gig or better machine if you're going to run VMs a whole lot, or you can run Boot Camp and just boot straight into Windows or Mac OS, up to you which you do. And then you've got, well, the world of Windows programs open to you. As ever, battery life is pretty good on Macs. Apple still claims 10 hours of battery life using it on Wi-Fi for light productivity tasks, and that is accurate. In fact, sometimes you can get more. One nice thing about Apple is they don't overclaim. You don't see them saying 22 hours of battery life, which would be impossible to attain in the real world. 10 hours is totally legit with this. Whether you get the base model with a 58.2 watt-hour battery or the new $1799 model with a 58 watt-hour battery, obviously they're using slightly different batteries there, but just about the same capacity, you should expect to get pretty good battery life with this. It comes with a 61-watt USB-C charger, Apple's typical kind of white, shiny, square design, pretty portable. There's that. So that's the 2020 edition of the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Finally, the butterfly keyboard is dead and eradicated from all of Apple's laptop models. Long live the Magic Keyboard with 1mm travel. It might not feel like a ThinkPad keyboard, but it sure is more usable than a butterfly and a lot more durable. For the rest of it, you're getting the same old 13-inch MacBook Pro that you know and perhaps even love or covet. There it is. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos and do hit the notification bell so you know about them too.